So here we are, we're asked to determine the inverse of a function. Well, the way that I've always approached the inverse of a function in this regard is to say focus on the order of operations that happens to this blue dot. So if we start at x by itself, so we start with x, the first thing that's going to happen to it order of operations wise is we're going to multiply by -1. That's going to give us an answer. Whatever that answer is, we're then going to take it and we're going to subtract. And how much are we going to subtract? We're going to subtract 2, and that means we're done with this entire side, so we're done. Now, an inverse is going to say, okay, let's start with basic x and go backwards. So if I start with a basic x and I go backwards from subtract 2, well, backwards means that we're going to add 2. So it's going to look like x plus 2. Then we're going to say, okay, well, let's take that whole thing and then we're going to divide by -1. So if I divide by -1, it's going to be x plus 2 over -1. And then all sorts of strange things happen, because what this means is that's really going to give me, what's going to happen here is I'm going to get x over -1 plus 2 over -1. And what's going to happen is a positive divided by a negative is going to give me -x, but then I'm also going to get this -2 right here. And this is an odd example because the inverse that I get is exactly the same thing as f of x. If you don't believe me, watch what happens when I use the orange right here and I plug it in to the original problem that they gave me. So if I take the original problem that they gave me, this would be starting with f and then plugging in my orange g. So there's f, plugging in my orange g, I would get -x minus 2. Well, remember this negative in front is going to distribute inside of this box, leaving me with x plus 2 minus 2. And then, lo and behold, the 2's cross out, leaving me with just x. So fog is equal to x. And then if I were to do the same thing, swapping it around using my orange, because my orange and what they gave me is the exact same thing, I'm going to get the exact same answer. So that does convince me that indeed the inverse is this orange box right here. So I'm going to go ahead and label it as inverse.